Hare Hare Krishna. So thank you all for joining in for Srila Prabhupada book study. We are studying the book Path to Perfection. We'll start with the prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dalati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapatakamelam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Prajana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradhayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauru Dushi Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tarale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkrapataham Mande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Krishna Chaitanyam Ishwaram Harihi Om Tat Sat Hare Krishna. So Dandavat pranams to all the devotees. Thank you all for joining in. So we were reading the introduction to the path of perfection. So in this, Prabhupada mentions how he's consolidated the essential points from chapter 6 and chapter 8 of Bhagavad Gita as it is. We are in this most auspicious month of Gita Marathon, the distribution of Srila Prabhupada's books. So it's auspicious that we are focusing on chapter 6 and chapter 8. And chapter 6, Prabhupada, is quoting the last verse of chapter 6. What is that? The best of all yogis is the Bhakti Yogi. Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam samyukta tamomataha. Right? Who is the best of all yogis? The best of all yogis is Yoginam api sarvesham. Best of all yogis is the one who thinks of the Lord always within his heart. Madgaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam. One who worships the Lord with faith. Same yukta tamomataha. Such a person is always a friend to me and I am a friend to him. So in that we concluded our study yesterday. Right? Such a person is intimately united with me and is the highest of all. So who is the best of all yogis? It is the one who practices Bhakti Yoga as described in 6.47. So now we continue to read. If devotees would like to read, you can raise your hands. And then we will continue reading from In the Path of Perfection, Srila Prabhupada offers. Yeah, Leelanandini Mataji, go ahead first. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat pranams.
In the Path of Perfection, Srila Prabhupada offers a brilliant summary of the method of Bhakti Yoga, revealing the universal applicability of this simple but all-inclusive form of yoga. He shows how even those who are entangled in the complexity and chaos of modern materialistic life can begin an uncomplicated practice that purifies the mind and puts one in touch with the Supreme Consciousness. This perhaps was Srila Prabhupada's greatest contribution to our age. Srila Prabhupada was an acknowledged master scholar of India's ancient spiritual culture and its linguistic foundation, the Sanskrit language. But he was not merely a textual scholar or a philosopher or a theologian engaged in the manufacture of interesting philosophical or theological notions. He was a true spiritual genius who succeeded in bringing to life the essence of India's universal spiritual wisdom in a form that is easy for 21st century man to understand and practice. This was the unique genius that inspired the late Prime Minister of India, Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri, to declare openly that the writings of Srila Prabhupada are a significant contribution to the salvation of mankind. The transforming quality of Srila Prabhupada's writing was also appreciated by sociologist Alvin H. Powell, who commented on Srila Prabhupada's best-selling edition of the Bhagavad Gita. This transcendental mysticism from the East is now taking root in the West and providing for many a way out of the wilderness of a disintegrating civilization. If truth is what works, there must be a kind of truth in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, since those who follow its teachings display a joyous serenity, usually missing in the bleak and strident lives of contemporary people. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Hari Bol.
So here, what are the publishers saying? These are the words of the publishers, right? They are saying what Prabhupada is focused in this particular book. Prabhupada is focused on chapter 6 and chapter 8 of the Bhagavad Gita. And then what Prabhupada is emphasizing here. So in that way, they give a context to the entire book. And now we are going on to chapter 1 of this book, which is entitled Yoga as Action. Very wonderful. This title itself is so wonderful. Why? Because generally bhakti in all the books, if you look at any other scriptural text, the word bhakti is translated as devotion, right? But it is only in Prabhupada's translation and purports that we always see bhakti means devotional service. That is a unique translation given by our Srila Prabhupada. No, before that, always bhakti is translated as devotion, right? So here Prabhupada is going to actually explain bhakti is just not manasik. Of course, our consciousness is very important because we are international with Krishna consciousness. Our consciousness is very important, but with that consciousness, what are we actually doing in action? That is also very important, right? Otherwise, sometimes we think, oh, I love Krishna. I always think of Krishna. But if it comes to sitting down and chanting 16 rounds without talking, without touching the mobile, without our mind running here, there, and everywhere, we realize what is the difficulty. Very difficult. Although theoretically we may say, I always remember Krishna. There is no time I don't remember Krishna. But when it comes to actually practicing it, it becomes, then we understand the real self. Now, how much advanced I am, right? I can't chant 16 rounds, 1.5, 2 hours also I cannot sit and chant. In between, I have to talk to somebody. I have to get up and walk. I have to look at my mobile. I have to think of what I am going to cook. Something or the other is always running in the mind. That is why Bhakti Yoga is always devotional service, devotion in action. What are we doing with our hands, with our legs, with our mouth, with our ears, with our nose, with our eyes? What are we doing which can give pleasure to the Lord? And that is why Prabhupada gives the translation. Bhakti means devotional service. As Radhanath Swami Maharaj says, to love means to please. To love means to serve. And to serve means to please. If we really love somebody, we have to serve them. And what should be our intention as we serve them? We need to please them. To love means to serve, and to serve means to please. With that thing in the background, let's start this. Chapter 1, which is Yoga as Action. All right, Sarva Gopi Mataji, go ahead. In the 6th and 8th chapters of the Bhagavad Gita.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. In the 6th and 8th chapters of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, explains that the eightfold yoga system is a means to control the mind and senses. This method, however, is very difficult for people to perform, especially this age of Kali, an age characterized by ignorance and chaos. Although the eightfold yoga system is particularly recommended in the
6th chapter.
In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord emphasized that the process of Karma Yoga action in Krishna consciousness is superior. In this world, everyone acts to maintain his family, and everyone is working with a view to some self-interest or personal sense gratification, be it concentrated or extended. but to act perfectly in Krishna consciousness, and this means acting detached from the fruits of labor. It is our duty.
Yeah, so we know that.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Mataji, once again, so we know this important verse, which is probably the most famous verse of Bhagavad Gita. What is that? Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Right? With the first two lines only people take and they quote everywhere. Right? The karma yoga means you have to just work and without any expectation of result. Right? But after that, next two lines are also very important. Right? Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbir. Mate sangostva karmani. Perform your actions for my satisfaction and give the fruits of your action. Surrender that fruits to me. Right? The next two lines are very important. But people think, okay, I will not be attached to the fruits, and that itself is very difficult. But more important than that, more important to be detached from the material objects is to get attached to Krishna. Because a detachment from material things is a natural consequence. When we get attached to Krishna, to that extent we are attached to Krishna, detachment from Maya is a natural consequence. We need not endeavor to detach ourselves from material things. I always remember this beautiful point made by His Holiness Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj. Right? He tells that the devotees of Lord Sri Krishna are like Vaman Dev's representatives. Right? What did Vaman Dev do? Vaman Dev came to Bali Maharaj and he asked for just 3 steps of land. Right? Like that devotees, he was saying, the devotee comes and just says, you don't have to give up anything. Just include Krishna in your life. Right? 3 steps of land. Bali Maharaj told, ask for more. I can give much more. But, Vaman Dev said, I am a Brahmana. I have to be satisfied with small things in life. Right? Just give me 3 steps. And then what did he do? He took away everything. In the first 2 steps only asked Bali Maharaj, where should I take my next step? Similarly, Maharaj was saying that when devotees come and preach Krishna consciousness, they say, don't have to give up anything. Right? Just add Krishna in your life. And then very profoundly, Maharaj was saying, but they add so much of Krishna in our life that we don't have space or time for anything else. So that is the devotees in the coming in the as a representative of Vamanadev, like that he was saying. So simply we need to get attached to Krishna. When we get attached to Krishna and start performing devotional service, we don't know how the time that we used to spend in watching movies, watching cricket match, watching serials, all those things, we don't have time at all now because Krishna has occupied our entire 24 hours. There's no need to give up our attachment for material things because we don't have time for it. And when we don't have time for it and we are continuously engaged in our manasa, deho, geho, right? Manasa, vacha, karmana in service of the Lord, we don't know when we are getting attached to other things. So our focus should be to get attached to Krishna. Yes, Mataji, continue. It is our duty.
It is our duty to act in Krishna consciousness because we are constitutionally parts and parcels of the Supreme. The parts of the body work for the satisfaction of the entire body, not for the individual parts. The goal is the satisfaction of the complete whole. Similarly, the living entity should act for the satisfaction of the Supreme whole, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and not for his own personal satisfaction. One who can do this is the perfect sannyasi and the perfect yogi. In the first verse of the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the chapter dealing with Sankhya Yoga, Bhagavan Sri Krishna states, scrolling, Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha sasanyasi cha yogi cha na niragnirna cha kriyaha. One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as he is obligated is in the renounced order of life. And he is the true mystic and not he who lights no fire and performs no work. Sometimes, Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So here, even Arjuna asks in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asks Krishna, what is the difference between Tyaga and Sannyasa? Right? We have discussed this sometime in detail, actually. One of the previous books. Right? Tyaga and Sannyasa. Sannyasi is an order of life. Not all of us can take up sannyas, right? Because according to our guna and karma, we've taken up grihastha ashram, where we perform devotional service being situated in family life, isn't it? But we can also perform tyaga. That is why here tyaga refers to one is not being attached to the fruits. Second is doing our duty for the pleasure of the Lord, right? And how we can do it in chapter 12, Krishna gives various options. One is we do the duty for the pleasure of the Lord, having no attachment whatsoever to the work also or to the results also. If you can't do that, then Krishna says, do that work for my satisfaction. If you can't do that, at least offer the results of the activities to me. Like that, and in this way, Krishna says, develop a desire to attain me. Right? Various options Krishna is giving in chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita. Right? So it all starts with not being attached to the fruits of our work and performing of the duty, irrespective of whether we are going to get success or not. It is in the endeavor. That means we endeavor to do work. And Krishna also tells, now we cannot even maintain our own body without doing work. Right? If you have to get some food, even animals for that matter, tiger has to hunt for food. Right? Even the animals have to hunt for their own food. So we cannot even maintain this body without doing any work. So it does not make sense to actually renounce everything, go into the forest and sit down. Right? We sit down for another 1 or 2 hours and then we feel hungry. And then we start looking out, what can I eat? Where can I go? What should I do? In this way, this is what we do, isn't it? So that is the reason here Prabhupada is saying that we need to perform our duty, but we should not be attached to the results of our work. That is much better than renouncing our action and going to the forest and doing artificial renunciation, because it becomes Falgu Vairagya. What is Yukta Vairagya? Yukta Vairagya means utilizing everything, performing our duty, lighting a fire, cooking, everything, but doing it for the pleasure of the Lord, doing it for offering to the Lord, not for personal sense gratification, like that. All right. So now who will read? Sometimes sannyasis. Who wants to read? Who are all there today? Okay, fine. Let me read. Sometimes sannyasis, renunciants, incorrectly think they have become liberated from all material engagements and therefore no longer have to perform Agnihotra yajnas or sacrifices. This is a mistake, right? So here it is talking about not giving up one's activity, but rather giving up the consciousness of expecting results of our activities, right? We studied about the 3 doers, where the jiva desires, the Lord sanctions, and Prakriti executes. So we are not the only doer, hence we have no right to claim result for the actions that we perform. So here Prabhupada says certain yajnas have to be performed for purification. Since sannyasis are not traditionally required to perform yajnas. Okay, Sarvagopishni Mataji, go ahead.
Sometimes sannyasis incorrectly think that they have become liberated from all material engagements and therefore no longer have to perform Agnihotra yajnas or fire sacrifices. This is a mistake. Certain yajnas sacrifices have to be performed by everyone for purification. Since sannyasi are not traditionally required to perform yajnas, they sometimes think that they can attain liberation by ceasing to perform the ritualistic yajnas. But actually, unless one comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness, there is no question of liberation. Those sannyasis who cease to perform the yajnas are in fact acting out of self-interest because their goal is to become one with the impersonal Brahman. That is the ultimate goal of the impersonalist Mayavadis, who have one major goal or demand, to become one with the supreme impersonal being. The devotees have no such demands. They are simply satisfied in serving Krishna for the satisfaction of Krishna. They do not want anything in return. That is the characteristics of pure devotion. It was scrolling. It was Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who expressed this attitude, this devotional attitude. So stated, no nadanam najanam nasundarim kavitava jagadicha kamiye mama janmani ishware bhavatat bhaktihi ahetuki tvayi. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth or not to enjoy beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. What I want is only the costless mercy of your devotional service in my life, birth after birth. Sikshastakam 4. In essence, this is the Bhakti Yoga system. There are many examples of the pure devotional attitude. Once, Lord Narasimha told Prahlad Maharaj My dear boy, you have suffered so much for me. Whatever you want, ask for it. Being a pure devotee, Prahlad Maharaj refused to ask anything. He said, my dear master, I am not carrying out a mercantile business with you. I will not accept any remuneration for my service. This is the pure devotional attitude. Yogis and jnanis are demanding to become one with the Supreme because they have such a bitter experience suffering in their material bands. They want to become one with the Lord because they are suffering in separation. A pure devotee, however, does not experience this. Although separate from the Lord, he fully enjoys the service of the Lord in separation. The desire to become one with the impersonal Brahman or to merge with God is certainly greater than any material desire. But this is not without self-interest. Similarly, the mystic yogis who practices the yoga system with half-open eyes, ceasing all material activities, desire some satisfaction for his personal self. Such yogis are desirous of material power, and that is their conception of the perfection of yoga. Actually, this is not the perfection of yoga, but a materialistic process.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So here, very, very beautiful point Prabhupada is making, right? We were discussing the other day about dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Right? All of these are sense gratification. Prabhupada explains why. Because we are performing our duty, dharma, but for what? Kama, artha. Because we are doing our activity so that we earn a lot of wealth, artha. And then we want to satisfy all of our material desires, kama. And then final, last snare of Maya, Prabhupada calls. What is the last snare of Maya? We want to become God. We want to merge with the Lord. So that is called the last snare of Maya, which is moksha. We don't understand the real meaning of moksha. We think moksha means I want to merge with the Lord. I want to become God. That's what is the last snare of Maya. So dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, improper understanding of moksha, they are all sense gratification, because I am desiring something from the Lord when I am performing devotional service, when I am doing any kind of work. Right? A devotional service has to be ahituki apratihata. Otherwise, it is not devotional service. It is some kind of a deal with the Lord. Here, a very beautiful word Prabhupada uses. What is the word? A mercantile business. Prabhupada is saying, what is Prahlad Maharaj telling Narsingadev? I am not having any mercantile business with you. Right? So I am not in any business with you. So basically, you need to just keep me always engaged in your service. That is all I want, right? Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim. Kavitamba jagadisha kamaye. Janmani bhavatad bhakti rahitukitve. I am simply wanting only to perform unmotivated and uninterrupted bhakti at your lotus feet. I don't want anything else, right? So that is the prayer by Prahlad Maharaj, which Prabhupada is quoting here. Why? Because if we perform devotional service with any other demand of dharma, artha, or kama, or moksha, then we are still desiring some satisfaction for one's own personal self, and that is not pure devotional service. That is again sense gratification, right? So the sense gratification is not the perfection of yoga. What is the perfection of yoga? The perfection of yoga is to perform activities for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like that. Okay, who wants to read next? Yeah, Sarvagopishri Mataji, you want? Oh, okay, you read already. Anyone else? Okay, Karpagavali Mataji, go ahead. If one practices,
Mataji, this time.
Mataji, you're on mute.
Mataji, am I audible,
Yes.
Mataji?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Mataji. If one practices the regulative principles of yoga, he can attain 8 kinds of perfection. He can become lighter than a cotton swab. He can become heavier than a great stone. He can immediately get whatever he likes. Sometimes he can even create a planet. Although rare, such powerful yogis actually exist. Vishwamitra Yogi wanted to beget a man from a palm tree. He was thinking, why should a man have to live so many months within the womb of his mother? Why can't he be produced just like a fruit? Thinking like this, Vishwamitra Yogi produced men like coconuts. Sometimes yogis are so powerful, they can perform such acts But these are all material powers. Ultimately, such yogis are vanquished because they cannot retain these material powers indefinitely. Bhakti yogis are not interested in such powers. The Bhakti yogi acting in Krishna consciousness works for the satisfaction of the whole without self-interest. A Krishna conscious man does not desire self-satisfaction. Rather, his criterion of success is the satisfaction of Krishna. Therefore, he is considered the perfect sannyasi and the perfect yogi. Mataji, shall I continue?
Yes.
Shall I continue? A perfect devotee does not even want salvation. The salvationists want to be saved from rebirth, and the wiredest also want to put an end to all material life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, requested only devotional service to Lord Krishna birth after birth. In other words, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was prepared to endure material miseries in one body and after another. Why then was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's what then was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's desire? He wanted to engage in God's service and nothing more. For that is the real perfection of yoga. Whether
Yeah,
in
so
the
Mama
spiritual-
Janmani, 1 second, Ataji. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is tells in Shastakam prayers, right? Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavadat Bhakti Rahituki Tvai. So what is the only request of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna himself, who's come in the mode of a pure devotee of the Lord? He's requesting only for a devotional service to the Lord, birth after birth. Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavadat Bhakti Rahituki Tvai. Right? He was prepared to endure material miseries, birth after birth. Right? All of us, even pure devotees to the Lord, right? We can see Swami Jayapataka Swami Maharaj for that, for an example, right? The last almost 12, 13 years, Maharaj has only been sitting on the wheelchair, but yet every day there is Chaitanya Leela class. Every day there is preaching even to the doctors and the nurses, right? So although there are material miseries, what does a pure devotee want? A pure devotee only wants to continue to engage in devotional service to Lord Sri Krishna, right? That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also saying here. Mama Janmani Janmanishware Bhavatat Bhaktir Ahituki Tvai. Ahituki means which is causeless, which is not with expectation of any kind of result from the Lord. Right? I'm doing devotional service, I need this. Then it does not become Ahituki. It does not become Apratihata. That means no interruption in service and no material cost while performing devotional service. That is the real perfection of yoga. He wanted to engage in God's service and nothing more. Nothing more means it does not desire for anything else other than that, like that. Yes, Mataji, go ahead. Whether in the spiritual sky,
whether in the spiritual sky or the material sky, the individual spiritual soul is constitutively the same. It is said that he is 1/10,000th of the part of the tip of a hair. This means that our position is that of a small particle, but spirit can expand. Just as we develop a material body in the material world, we develop a spiritual body in the spiritual world. In the material world, expansion takes place in contact with matter. In the spiritual world, this expansion is spiritual. Actually, the first lesson of the Bhagavad Gita is, I am spirit soul. I am different from this body. I am a living force. But this material body is not a living force. It is dull matter and it is activated only because spiritual force is present. In the spiritual world, everything is living force, but there is no dead matter. Therefore, the body is totally spiritual. One can compare the spiritual soul with oil and the body with water. When oil is in water, there is a distinction, and that distinction always remains. In the spiritual sky, there is no question of oil being placed in water. There everything is spirit. Shall I continue, Mataji?
yeah. So here, first lesson, yeah, we can read one more paragraph and then we'll end at 125 and then we'll take any questions. We'll end at 130. Okay. So here, Prabhupada gives the first instruction of what even Lord Shri Krishna gives to Arjuna and Bhagavad Gita, right? Chapter number 2, right? He talks about the distinction between the soul and the body, right? Dehi nityam avadyoyam dehe sarvasya bharatah, right? Dehi nityam, that means the soul is always eternal. Avadyoyam, that means the soul can never be destroyed, right? And then there is another verse, nainam chintanti shastrani nainam dati pavakah na chainam kledayantyapo na shocheti marutah, wherein the Lord is describing the characteristics of the soul, right? Nainam chintanti shastrani, no weapon can destroy the soul. Na dahati pavakah, the wind cannot blow away the soul. Na chainam na kletayanti apo na shochayati marutah. Okay. Na shochayati marutah. So in this way, the soul is described as that which cannot be destroyed by any weapon, that which cannot be dried away by wind, that which cannot be killed. Whereas, in contrast, the body is something that is always to be destroyed. The body is something that will always be destroyed at the end of one's lifetime. That means what? The soul takes up another body at the time of death, right? Dhiras tatrana muyati dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yoganam jaram. Dehinosmin. Dehino means the person, the embodied soul, which accepts a material body is always eternal. Whereas the body that is accepted is always temporary. So here, Prabhupada is actually giving us a distinction between Dehi and Deha. What is Dehi? Dehi is the soul and Deha is the body. Dehi is the living force or the spiritual spark or the Jiva. Whereas Deha is the material body or is a dull matter, right? And then Prabhupada talks about how in the spiritual world everything is living, right? Even the trees, the plants, the creepers, all of them are living. Why? Because they all have consciousness and they all want to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? In the material world, there is always a distinction between the soul and the body. But when the Lord comes to this material world, then there is no difference, right? Why? Because for the Lord, there is no birth as such, where the Lord incarnates or the Lord does avatar or the Lord descends for certain purposes, which is to protect the pious, to annihilate the miscreants, etc. All right. So we'll read the last paragraph. Anyone else? Leela Nandini Mataji, go ahead. Impersonalists.
Hare Krishna Mataji. The impersonalists do not want to develop a body. They simply want to remain spiritual particles, and that is their idea of happiness. But we Bhakti Yogis, Vaishnavas, want to serve Krishna, and therefore we require hands, legs, and all the other bodily parts. Indeed, we are given these bodies in order to serve Krishna. Just as we develop a material body in our mother's womb, we can similarly develop a spiritual body in the spiritual world. The spiritual body is developed through the practice of Krishna consciousness. This material body is spiritualized by this Bhakti Yoga process. If you place an iron within fire, the iron becomes so hot that it also becomes fiery. When the iron is red hot, it acquires all the qualities of fire. If you touch something with that iron will act as a fire. Similarly, although this body is material, it can become spiritualized through Krishna consciousness and act as spirit. Although copper is just a metal, as soon as it comes in contact with electricity, it becomes electrified, and if you touch it, you will receive an electric shock. As soon as your body is spiritualized, material activity ceases. Material activity means acting for sense gratification. As you become spiritualized, material demands dwindle until they become nil. How is this possible? In order for an iron to act as fire, it must remain constantly in contact with fire. In order for the material body to become spiritualized, one must remain constantly in Krishna consciousness. When this material body is fully engaged in spiritual activities, it becomes spiritual. Hare Krishna,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah,
Hare
so
Bol.
we'll end here. Very, very beautiful, isn't it? Prabhupada gives such beautiful examples, right? When the iron, if it has to act as fire, means it has to burn like fire. When can it do like that? Only when the iron is inside the fire, the burning fire for a long time. And then there is no difference, right? Although the iron and fire don't merge together, the iron maintains its identity as iron, but it functions like that of fire because it can burn up objects just like fire can do so. Similarly, when our material body, how can we spiritualize our material body? Being constantly in association with Krishna consciousness. How do we, what is it that we do? So that constantly we are associated with Krishna consciousness by hearing, by chanting. Then, the 9 angas of bhakti. Shravanam, hearing, Kirtanam, always chanting the glories of the Lord. Vishnu Smaranam, always remembering Lord Sri Vishnu. Right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, by performing deity worship of the Lord, right? By worshipping the Archa Vigraha Seva, right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam. Vandanam means glorifying the Lord by wonderful prayers, right? Then what is it? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, as a servant of the Lord. We cook to offer for the Lord. We perform Aarti Seva for the Lord. We bathe and dress the deities for the pressure of the Lord. As a servant, we engage in the service of the Lord. Then Sakyam and then Atmanivedam. Those are very, very high stages where one develops Raganuga Bhakti. That means one serves the Lord as a friend or surrenders completely to the Lord. Like that of Bali Maharaj. Right? Where one completely surrenders oneself with no self-interest for the pleasure of the Lord. So the entire Nava Angas of Bhakti, when we continuously perform these angas of bhakti, then what happens? Our material body itself becomes spiritualized. Now, spiritualized means we have no interest other than the interest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We are not interested to perform any activity for sense gratification. Whatever we do, it is for Haritoshanam, for the pleasure of the Lord. And then our life becomes perfect. Path of perfection. Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. Everything is done for the pleasure of the Lord. When the Lord is pleased, everything becomes perfect. Hare Krishna. So with that, we will end our session today. We will continue this chapter tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Gurudev ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So in case devotees want to share anything or ask anything, then we can do that. Nice to see all the devotees switching on your cameras. Thank you very much. Jagat Guru
Mataji,
Srila
sorry,
Prabhupada.
Mataji. Disturbance. Some work is going on in the house. That's why work is going on.
That's
That's
okay.
why disturbance.
That's okay. That's
Sorry,
okay. I just
Mataji.
muted because of that only. Some disturbance was
Thank
coming.
you,
All right. Hare Krishna. Anyone else wants to share anything or ask anything?
Hare Krishna Mataji,
Thank you.
on that Vaikunta Ekadasi, I was not in the house. I was preaching and I was distributing the sweet in the triplicate Pathsadi Koil. So I couldn't attend your class, Bhagavad Gita. Little bit only I attended. I couldn't get the connection. That's all. Thanks for that.
No problem, Mataji. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your wonderful contribution towards Bhagavad Gita distribution. I'm sure His Holiness Bhakti Vijay Bhagavad Swami Maharaj has actually sent a message that he's prayed for all the devotees who sponsored. He said, Jai. Very wonderful. So this is the blessing by senior devotees, by senior sannyasis, whose blessings only enable us to continue with this process of devotional service. We are simply instruments in their hands, and by their blessings we work. Just like a machine works, right? When there's a supervision by a person, the machine automatically performs its function, right? The machine does not think, oh, how much did I produce? Nothing. Similarly, we simply do our activity and the key is given by our spiritual authorities. They give us a blessing and we are just continuously doing our activity, the pleasure of the Lord. And when we please the spiritual authority, then Krishna is also automatically pleased. So that is our only hope. Thank you very much. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Gurudev ki jai. Jai God Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So apologies for starting a little bit late. So I'll be posting something in the group. If you all are free, you can join in. Coming Thursday, this is apart from our normal sessions, of course, Brahma Muhurta and 12:30. So coming Thursday, 8 o'clock, we have an opportunity to glorify His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Shri Guru Maharaj for ISKCON Seshadripuram. I believe it's in Bangalore. Online session only. So we'll share the Zoom details so you can join in. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Gurudev ki jai.